up to the light that thou hast. Live up to the truth and remember, my child, you are never alone, no, never. Oh, live up to the light that thou hast, and more will be granted thee, will be granted thee. Oh, live up to the light thou hast.
My name is Mary Pugh, and we are here in the Pathmark parking lot in Montclair, New Jersey. What do you know about Quakers?
Well, I know Pennsylvania Quakers is the name of the University of Pennsylvania.
Quakers? I don't know what is Quakers. What is that?
Quaker oatmeal.
I don't know too much about them. I heard about it before, but I don't really know about them.
Have you ever met a Quaker?
I don't believe so. We were out in Pennsylvania in the Amish country, but I don't believe I met any Quakers.
I thought they dressed like Amish, in black and purple and natural colors.
Quakers oats?
I just think of black clothes and no dancing.
They have a dress that is not common with the attire of the normal American dress, yes.
I forgot all about it. I remember studying in school about the Quakers, but it just don't dawn on me now.
Sometimes I like to eat it.
They're pacifists, believe that the inner light is the central norm of theology. Early feminists, already back in the 1600s, I think, Fox went around chanting, "Woe to the bloody city of Litchfield," and all that sort of stuff. No.
You know a lot.
Yeah, I'm sort of cheating, though. I have a doctorate in theology.
I was having a lot of great struggle over the issue of war and peace, particularly as a good Baptist. I've been taught to love my enemies and do good to those that hate me. And here we were bombing the hell out of the Germans and apparently enjoying being in the war, even if it was tough. And I withdrew very largely from most religious services because the two just didn't seem to harmonize. And then I met up with Quakers, and they seemed to offer some, if not answers, at least some willingness to explore the questions.
It's not exciting the way, say, high church Episcopalians or Catholics have with singing and incense, bell, book, and candle. It's not dramatic in that sense. It's not, in some ways, emotionally stirring as, a Black Baptist church. But for people who appreciate silence and silent worship, they might like it. But I think it's a taste. I mean, I think that one of the reasons there are not a lot of blacks is that blacks and most people don't know about Quakers. But I think the other thing is that one does need a taste for silence.
Friends believe that there is that of the divine in each person, and they come together for an hour of worship each Sunday with the expectation that they will be meeting with their community and that they will expect to possibly meet the divine in that encounter. So people come in and settle down and center, as we call it, with the idea that one sits comfortably, but not in a particular posture. One tries to get rid of the extraneous thoughts and emotions that are present, and to become very still. And everybody is doing the same thing with the same expectation. If a person feels that God has a message for the group through an individual, they will very simply state what is on their mind. It is supposed to be something that is sifted through carefully enough that one would feel that it was a message for the entire group. We have the nickname of Quaker, And that has come about in a very real way because many friends who have been worshiping and meeting for worship a long time have the experience of some physiological sign that this is an urgent message that is to be shared. We don't exactly quake anymore, but there is, I know for myself, I can feel what I can only call as a certain vibrating that indicates urgency. Friends do have the feeling that other people are finishing their message for them, that they haven't the whole truth, but that in this mysterious connectedness that we feel, that somebody else will pick up their message and add some light on it that was not their truth, but becomes a combined truth. And early friends in their journals continually testified to what their life was like before they came to Friends, what it began to be like as they worshiped in silence with their community. And most of our historic journals testify to an experience where life was made anew in the silence. Friends believe that by coming as a community into the silence, that of God in all those wonderful individuals can be refined and purified, and that a new truth can be realized. And most of us that have been around for a while have had enough experience at that we will try for it again and again. You are working continually to be loving, to be open, to be sensitive, to be warm, knowing that you're not always acting like you would like to, but you have that ideal, and that everybody else has the same ideal. So that as you work out community life, you are all focused on not hurting, speaking truth, being loving and concerned about issues that hurt other people, and this is very rich. And even when we are disappointed, we live in the hope that we will order our lives as individuals so that when we come together, we will reach that higher truth. And you only need to do it once, and the experience is so real that although it's difficult to talk about, it's integrated fully within the personality, and you just keep coming back, coming back.
A program meeting is similar to a non-program meeting in that people come together to worship. And in coming together to worship, they come to be at one with the Creator, with Christ. The on-program meeting does not have items that are thought of before, like hymns and scripture readings and so on. It is Quaker because while it is planned and programmed, there is time for friends to share their beliefs, concern, leading, guidance, or what have you. There is a period when there is silent worship. And in that silent worship, friends have an opportunity of sharing. Also, it is Quaker because Quakers believe in the inner light, believe that there is that of God in everyone, believe that George Fox, the founder of Quakerism, saw that it is necessary to preach, so that it was necessary to teach that Christ has come to teach his people himself, so that it was necessary for people to be conversant with the scripture. So from the point of view that we follow in a great measure the teachings of George Fox, who himself was a preacher. We consider ourselves a part of maybe original Quakerism. Friends have accepted the Gospel of John, for instance, as the Quaker Gospel, and hold very firmly to the teaching of Jesus that says, from henceforth I call you not servants, but I call you friends. And that's literally where we get our name, the Society of Friends, from, literally. And so the friends look at Scripture from a particular point of view, from the point of view that there is the spiritual interpretation, as it were, and the individual responsibility to interpret Scripture from a spiritual point of view. The Society of Friends puts the burden on the individual to be guided, quote, by the light. The individual is obliged to seeing it from his or her point of view, and this is where the minister himself can be helped.
Well, I think the sense of the meeting is itself a foreign phrase to almost anyone except Quakers. What it means is to do business. How do we determine what we want to do in terms of organizational structure, in terms of organizational activity, in terms of financing? Any decisions that a Quaker meeting makes are not made by a structure at the top, by a leader, by a committee at the top that filters down. All decisions are made by all of those members of the meeting in attendance. This arises primarily out of the basic tenet of Quakerism, that there is that of God in every person, and that therefore any individual has as much right and as much competence to make a decision as any other, and in that sense, therefore, it's one step beyond democracy, which is a vote by the majority, because Quakerism says we do not ask the majority. What we ask is what everyone, taken as a whole, accepts as what they feel is God's way of making a decision in this capacity. We meet together as a group. An issue is to be decided. Perhaps a committee has made a recommendation. Perhaps somebody within the meeting has said, I think we ought to do this or that, and the meeting then considers it. I think one of the keys to the decision-making process is that this business decision is made in a meeting for worship with a special attention to business, so that we start with worship, we start with listening, we try to find out for each of us, ourselves, what it is that God is saying with regard to this question. And we understand that God speaks to different people in different voices, so that he doesn't say the same thing to everyone. If he did, it would be very simple. But each of us has some different comprehension of what it is that God is saying to that person, and he expresses this to the meeting. Other people express what they feel is the appropriate thing to do, and there may be two sides, there may be three sides, there may be four sides to an issue, but as we listen to each other and try to understand what people with different concepts are trying to say, very often there comes out of this discussion a sense that everyone in the meeting is moving in some direction. This is the sense of the meeting. The clerk who sits in front of the meeting does not determine that direction, but the clerk is there to discern what the direction is, to sense to what extent people are agreeing or moving in the direction of agreement on any issue. And when the clerk feels that there is a sense of the meeting that he or she can feel that the meeting is beginning to agree on some part or all of the issue, then the clerk will state what he or she feels that sense to be, and the meeting will express approval, or perhaps other people within the meeting may not feel that they are comfortable with that decision and may suggest that it be amended in some slight direction, or sometimes they disagree with it entirely. If there is significant disagreement, then no action is taken. It is the function, particularly of the recording clerk, to listen very carefully to what that clerk feels people are saying, or what people are meaning, perhaps even more than what they're saying, to try to sense what's in people's minds and hearts, because frequently the words they use give a mistaken impression. They didn't mean that word, but one can often read behind the words what the real meaning is. So we try to get behind the words into what it is that God is, in a sense, saying through that person. Friends try to be considerate of others. They don't fight with each other in a bitter way. Well, sometimes they do. Again, friends are people. Sometimes bitterness creeps in. All the sins that mankind is heir to are part of Quakers' humanity, and all kinds of things do in fact happen. The point that is most important is that we try to reach an ideal and in which the bickering and confrontation is reduced as much as possible. And that itself is a feeling that comes from our basic belief in that of God in every person. If God is speaking out of your opponent's mouth, you don't really slap God in the face. You may be able to say, or you may wish to say, that doesn't sound like what God's saying to me, and you may argue it out on that basis, but there is always respect. Pardon me. There always should be respect for what other people are saying.
There are only 216,144 Quakers in the entire world. This is statistically 0.02% of the world's so-called Christians. For this group, and I've been aware of Quakers being involved in or finding a Quaker in the woodwork in various organizations. Recently I've started looking not at the 17th century, not at the 18th century, not at the 19th, but the 20th century alone. And I'm developing a list of some 40 organizations, some of which are heard constantly in the news as being finding out and investigating that they were Quaker in their origin. One of three things: that there was either an individual Quaker, a group of Quakers together, or Quakers in another group. We can start with Amnesty International and go alphabetically down to youth hostels. We can include Oxfam, we can include Greenpeace, we can include the AIDS Quilt Project, we can say the Law of the Seas Treaty, we can give the Equal Rights Amendment with Alice Paul, CARE, Save the Children, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, NAACP Quakers were involved, Urban League Quakers were involved. It's an incredible list for this tiny group that there must be something in Quakerism that trusts people and frees them and empowers them to do something outside of themselves, beyond and above.
Last year, we had over 24,000 encounters with homeless people in New York City and the suburban areas. These encounters occurred in soup kitchens, in drop-in centers, in family shelters. We brought basic services, food, child care, recreational activities, but we brought them in a special way, a way that was friendly. The essence of what Quakers would like to see, I think, in service. We said to people, we don't see you as objects. We don't see you as problems. We see you first as people with names, people with needs, but more than your needs. And I think this kind of friendly service was really important.
We will cook dinner for people tonight, and tomorrow we'll be working in various different work camps, and possibly making sandwiches for people and bringing them to Grand Central Station. I don't know if we're going to do that, but that's what I heard that people have done in the past.
From what I know about the Quakers, they've always considered everyone equal from the very beginning. You know, men and women. No one was above anyone, and by bringing everyone into here and calling them guests and eating with them as equals, and serving them, and then meeting together and having in the meeting house.
Right.
It really is. I feel so I wish I could I wish I could pursue the Quaker religion a little bit more and find out really how they can get this attitude to everyone.
At YSOP, I am the program director here, and so I also do this as part of my job, which is very nice. It's a great thing for me to do in New York City while I live here. The Quaker philosophy is certainly very much intrinsic in the work that we do and the way that we do it, and also in the reflection that we do on the volunteer service that we provide. It's very much intrinsic in all of that.
Well, I was talking at work with somebody today who was asking me, what are you going to do this weekend? And I said, well, I'm going to work with these teenagers at a work camp, and we're going to help people. And he said, really? Well, what are the hours of this thing? How long do you have to be there? And I said, well, I'm going to sleep on the floor of a meeting house of a church, and do the whole weekend. And this guy was astonished, and he said, God, I could never do that. I can't believe that. That's amazing. That's amazing. And then he sort of brought up something that he wanted to do, and I said, well, we all have to do what we can. And I feel, Quakerism constantly asks me to question that. How much can I do? What can I do? And this is something that I can do, and I think I can do it well. And it's part of my religious conviction to give of myself, to help other people. And this is a way to do it. Now, this is what I can do. Other people can do something else, whatever they can.
toward unforeseen ends, cherishing truth wherever it falls. Quakers are friends to the light in us all.
The first gleam of light, the cold light of morning, held a promise of day with its noontide glories. It dawned on me as I mused on my state in great sadness. The words that came to my spirit, how true and how clearly they rang. Live up to the light that thou hast. Live up to the truth and remember, my child, you are never alone, no, never. Oh, live up to the light that thou hast, and more will be granted thee, will be granted thee. Oh, live up to the light thou hast. Live up to the light that thou hast. Live up to the truth and remember, my child, you are never alone, no, never. Oh, live up to the light that thou hast, and more will be granted thee, will be granted thee. Oh, live up to the light.